Hey Creep Freaks, Ren here. Got something a little bit different tonight. Rather than one long story, I've made 3 shorter stories. All 3 of these are on ghostly love, or love affairs with a ghost. Let's get to the first one. The Haunting of Greg. The house had been on the market for years, sitting quietly on the outskirts of town, like a wounded animal waiting to be put down. The locals whispered about it, how it was cursed or haunted, and how the last family to live there met a grisly end. But for one man, those rumors only piqued his interest. His name was Greg, and he had always been fascinated by the paranormal. He used to devour books on ghosts and monsters, spending his day imagining the afterlife and the creatures that might inhabit it. As an adult, he turned his passion into a career, working as a paranormal investigator and traveling the country in search of the supernatural. When he saw the house for sale, it was as if fate had intervened. He knew immediately that he had to have it, that it would be the perfect place to continue his research and maybe even find love. Not with the living, but love with the dead. Greg always thought it would be cool to have a ghost as a girlfriend. It took months to finalize the sale, but finally, the keys were Greg's, and he moved in, eager to start his new life. The house was old and creaky, with peeling wallpaper and cobwebs in the corner, but to Greg, it was beautiful. He spent the first night there, alone but hopeful, listening for the slightest sound or sign of the paranormal. Days turned into weeks and nothing happened. Greg grew restless, his excitement fading into disappointment. He tried everything he knew to make contact with the other side, from Ouija boards to seances, but still, the house remained quiet. And then one night, everything changed. He was lying in bed, staring up at the ceiling when he heard it. A soft whisper, almost like a sigh, coming from the corner of the room. He sat up, his heart pounding, and called out, "Is someone there?" There was no answer, but the whisper grew louder, more insistent. Greg could feel the presence in the room with him, a weight on his chest that made it hard to breathe. Who are you?" he asked. The whisper turned into a voice, a woman's voice, soft and sad. "I'm Sarah," she said. Greg felt a surge of excitement. Finally, he had made contact. "Sarah, it's so good to meet you. Can you tell me more about yourself?" And so, over the next few weeks, he learned all he could about Sarah. She had lived in the house in the 1800s, a young woman in love with a man who had gone off to war and never returned. She died of a broken heart, and now she haunted the house, waiting for her beloved to return. Greg was smitten. He spent all his time talking to Sarah, learning about her life and her hopes and dreams. He felt a connection to her that he never felt with any living woman. But then something changed. What Greg thought was going to be a great relationship was actually agony. His heart hurt when he began to realize his love for Sarah was one-sided, that she would never return his affections. He tried to distance himself from her, to move on with his life, but she wouldn't let him go. She appeared to him at all hours, day and night, her ghostly form hovering over him as he slept, her voice whispering in his ear. He grew afraid of her, afraid of what she might do if he tried to leave. And so he stayed, trapped in the house with the ghost who wouldn't let him go. He tried to reach out to other paranormal investigators, to find a way to exorcise Sarah and be free, but no one would help him out. They all thought he was crazy, that he had lost his mind. One told him that he broke the paranormal investigator code by dating one of the dead, so that's why he's being shunned. In the end, Greg was left alone with his ghost, unable to escape the haunting that had taken over his life. He grew pale and gaunt, his eyes haunted by fear and exhaustion. As he laid in bed, Sarah appeared to him again, her face twisted with anger. "Why do you want me to leave?" she demanded. "I thought you loved me." Greg tried to reason with her, to explain that he couldn't continue living like this, that he needed to move on with his life. But Sarah wouldn't listen. "You can't leave me! I won't let you!" And then she was on top of him, her ghostly hands around his throat, choking the life out of him. Greg struggled and gasped for air, but he was powerless against her. As he took his last breath, Greg realized the terrible truth. He had been wrong all along. Love with a ghost was not the answer to his loneliness. It was a curse, a trap that destroyed him. As his spirit rose from his body, he saw Sarah's ghostly form, still hovering over him, still waiting for a love that could never be. The Ghostly Love of Glacier Bay, written and read by Ren Bryant. As the clock struck midnight, a young man named Jack sat alone in his small cottage, staring out at the window into the darkness. It was a cold, dark night in the small town of Glacier Bay. The wind howled through the trees, and the moon was hidden behind thick layers of clouds. Jack had lived in Glacier Bay his entire life, and he knew the stories about the ghosts that haunted the town. But he never believed in any of them until he met Emily. Emily was unlike any other woman Jack had met. But there was something different about her. She didn't seem quite real. Jack first saw Emily in the town cemetery. He was there visiting his father's grave when he noticed her sitting alone by a headstone. He approached her cautiously, unsure if she was a real person or just a figment of his imagination. Excuse me," he said. "Are you okay?" Emily turned to him with a smile that lit up the night. "Yes, I'm fine," she said. "I come here often to visit my family." Her voice struck Jack like a bolt of lightning, leaving him infatuated from the very moment he saw her. They talked for hours, and as the night wore on, Jack realized that Emily was a ghost, but he didn't care. He was in love. Over the next few weeks, Jack spent every night with Emily. They walked together through the town, and Jack listened as Emily told stories about her life. She had died many years ago, but she never left Glacier Bay. But as their love grew stronger, strange things began to happen in town. People reported seeing the ghost walking through the street at night, and there were whispers of a dark presence that was haunting the town. One night, as Jack and Emily were walking through the cemetery, they heard a loud noise. They turned to see a figure emerging from a nearby grave. "Who are you?" Jack shouted, his heart pounding in his chest. The figure stepped forward, revealing an evil grin. "I'm the ghost of Emily's husband," he said, "and I've come back to take her to the other side. The living and the dead do not belong together." Jack knew he had to protect Emily, but he was no match for the spirit. With an unholy might, Emily's husband lunged towards him, causing Jack to be forcefully hurled to the ground. As he hit with a thud, Emily's husband floated over him, his ghostly eyes glowing with rage. He raised his hand to strike Jack again, but Emily rushed forward, grabbing her husband's arm just in time. Jack laid there, battered and broken. He watched as Emily's husband reached out to take her away, but Emily refused to go. "I love Jack," she said. "I won't leave him. I don't care if our love troubles people." The ghost of Emily's husband let out a howl of anger, and suddenly he was gone. Emily turned to Jack, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry," she said. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Jack held her close, and they stood together in the darkness, their love strong enough to even come the most powerful of haters, whether from the world of the living or the dead. Phantasmic Love, written and read by Ren Bryant. It was a sweltering summer night when Evan first saw her. She was a ghost floating above his bed, translucent and alluring. Evan couldn't take his eyes off of her, couldn't resist the physical pull he felt towards her. This wasn't any ghost. This ghost was straight out of a Playboy centerfold, a boisterous naked beauty with fake everything in all the right places. The type of ghost Evan always dreamt about. Evan had always known he was different. Even when he was a kid, he made ghost costumes and watched TV shows about the supernatural. He pretended he was a ghost all the time. And as he grew older, the fascination turned into a deep desire. He wanted to feel the cold body of a ghost against his own. He figured a ghost wouldn't be judgmental about his belly fat and his back hair and the way his spit flew from his teeth as he giggled. But it wasn't until that fateful summer night that Evan finally got what he wanted. The ghost above his bed had long flowing hair and eyes that glowed like moonlight and literally out-of-this-world knockers. As he reached out to touch her, he felt the thrill like he had never known before. For weeks, Evan and the ghost were inseparable. She was everything he ever wanted, and he was never happier than when he was with her. But as the days wore on, Evan began to realize there was something strange about this ghostly lover. She seemed distant and distracted, as if there was something she wasn't telling him. And when he pressed her for answers, she grew evasive and her eyes would flicker. One night, as they lay in bed together, Evan finally couldn't take it anymore. He had to know what was going on. "My love, what's wrong?" he asked. "Why won't you tell me what's going on?" The ghost turned to him, looking coldly at his double chins. "Evan," she said, "there's something you need to know. I'm not just any ghost. I'm what you would call an escort. You know, a hooker. It's time to pay up. My pimp's demanding the money, so I can't keep this going any longer unless you got the cash." Evan felt his heart breaking in his chest. He had known all along that his love for ghosts was a strange and unusual thing, but this he couldn't understand. "I'm sorry, what? An escort?" I thought you knew," the ghost said. Evan shook his head. The ghost let out a big exhale that made her boobs sink. "Okay, well, how do I put this? The spirit world, it's the same as the alive world. Same job, same people, just more see-through. Look, you're really nice and all, but really, would someone like me be with someone like you? Come on, get real. I know you wish it was true, but these sorts of relationships, they only happen if you're one of those rich tech nerds. Otherwise, you gotta pay. I'm sorry it's gotta be this way, but that's just how it is." As if in a trance, Evan stared straight ahead, his jaw slack, as he reached into his back pocket and took out his wallet. He took out all the bills he had and handed it to the ghost. She did a quick count and nodded before dematerializing. As the ghost vanished into the night, leaving Evan alone and heartbroken, he couldn't help but wonder if he would ever find love again. Could anyone love someone that looked like him? Would anyone truly understand his strange ghostly desires? He knew one thing, though. He was never going to stop looking. For as long as he lived, Evan would be searching for that one perfect ghostly connection.